Apple is switching everything over to ARM, which I think is fantastic. I think that is a step in the right direction for Apple, and I'll tell you why. Because Apple has already ditched NVIDIA, which is the best graphics that you can get, which was a bad move. Now they're ditching Intel, which is one of the most reliable, although I will say ARM is a very reliable chip. Based on their past record of ditching NVIDIA and ditching Intel now, and then ditching the ability for you to change out your hard drive and SSD and your RAM and your CD tray and all of these I/O on the side, the RJ45 port. They've ditched all this stuff thinking that consumers don't want that. And now they're saying, well, we're going to make it so that your laptop runs phone apps, and your phone apps will essentially, or your iPad will run laptop apps, and we're going to force people like Adobe, the video editing software and photo editing software, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Premiere, we're going to force Adobe to give us 30% of their subscription rates, when Adobe is already expensive as all get out because of their subscription rates. Now Adobe is going to raise their subscription rates for Apple users another 30% because they have to share their price with Apple. Now we're going to see a lot of, I believe we're going to see a lot of video editors and possibly photo editors move away from Apple. The attitude that they've given their clientele so far, and I think them switching to ARM is excellent because it shows us they really don't care about their customers. In the next 10 years, we're going to see a big shift with Apple as people don't enjoy how poorly their third-party apps run on the ARM processors, then having to pay 30% more in the App Store to get first-party apps from the App Store, and having to pay 30% more for those. Now, people have always paid more for Apple, so I could be totally wrong. They could be totally down for paying more just to run Mac OS. But Windows 10 has gotten really good, and Linux has gotten amazing. Linux has always led the curve, led the other operating systems in feature set. Now, compatibility, Linux has had a problem, but now Linux is going to be better for gaming and also better for video editors such as Davinci Resolve, because Blackmagic is working on their Linux and they're updating their Linux version of Davinci Resolve. And a lot of people like Davinci Resolve because they have to color grade their footage in Davinci Resolve anyway and then import it to Adobe Premiere. And Davinci Resolve has a really good editor, so I stay on Davinci Resolve because I'd rather edit on Davinci Resolve and color grade and do all my work in one spot than importing, exporting, moving into a different NLE, and so on and so forth. So we're really going to see a shift towards more Linux users, more Windows users, less Apple users, and I really like the fact that Apple is cutting ties with basically their entire clientele by not only getting rid of NVIDIA a couple years ago, getting rid of all support for NVIDIA, but then following that up with getting rid of support for Intel-based applications such as Adobe Premiere. Adobe Premiere is optimized for Intel. I don't know if you knew that, but it's optimized for Intel processors. And for Apple to say, hey, now you have to optimize for our new ARM processors, I feel like a lot of people are going to be upset about the way Adobe Premiere runs on ARM processors when people are already complaining about the crashes that Adobe Premiere has on Intel processors. And Adobe Premiere is optimized for Intel processors, and Adobe is terrible at listening to their clientele, making adjustments to their software to make it run better. You're going to see a shift away from Adobe Premiere. You're going to see a shift away from Apple. And I think you're going to see other NLEs. I don't know if DaVinci Resolve will be the other NLE, but I mean, a lot of people in Hollywood already use DaVinci Resolve because of the color grading aspect of it. It's very possible that they will just go ahead and use DaVinci Resolve entirely because it has a excellent team collaboration on the studio version, on the $300 version. It's also not subscription based like Adobe's products are, so you don't have to pay every month to be able to use the software that you use for your work, which I think is excellent. It's more along the lines with Serato. Serato you pay up front. You don't pay per month, kind of like Virtual DJ versus Serato. If you're coming from a DJ's point of view, would you rather use Virtual DJ or Serato? And some people are hell-bent on Virtual DJ. Other people are like, I just want to pay up front for my Serato, or get the free version of Serato, which is an excellent software, by the way. Or a lot of MIDI control boards come with Serato, the pro version of Serato, included with the board. That's my thing, is pay per month for Virtual DJ, pay per month for Adobe Premiere, or pay up front for DaVinci Resolve, or pay up front for Serato. And I'm more of a pay up front. I don't like paying per month. If there's an update and it costs me money, I can choose whether I want that update or not. And then Adobe Creative Cloud just pushing updates on you and then crashing your computer, crashing your editing session, that's terrible. I don't like the way Adobe is gone, and I say that I like the way Apple is going only because I feel like Apple is pushing their clientele away, and Apple is going for that consumer, saying, hey, we're going to have a great laptop for the everyday email checker person. And I don't think a lot of people are checking their emails on their laptop anymore. They're checking it on their phone. So you're going to see a shift away from their Apple laptops. You're going to see a shift away from Macintosh and the Mac operating system. You're going to see a shift away from Apple, from professionals that need a professional computer, need a reliable operating system. And Apple has always been reliable. I will say that. I don't have to worry about the operating system with Apple. I will say since the last Windows update, I have been experiencing some crashes and some weird stuff, and I've been kind of upset with the way that's running. But then again, I don't experience it enough to worry about it. I don't experience it enough to where I don't think I could take a Windows laptop out to a gig. I think I could take a Windows laptop out to a gig. That's fine. Windows 10 has come really far versus macOS, which has pretty much stayed the same except for taking away features for the past decade. It's just gotten worse and worse over the past decade. All right, I'm out of here. Peace.